so much.
The Knights playing as well as they are, you will not want to miss seeing their next home game in person. Baltimore comes to town for the first time to Metro Stadium. It's the next New York Knight home game. Call 1-800-GO-KNIGHTS. Get your tickets now. Or you can listen live here. Oh, look at Parkeet Shoal! This is ridiculous! That is another touchdown! Parkeet Shoal! I'm speechless. I can't believe this guy. I mean, look at the burst of speed at the second level.
4 down linemen for Louisville in what appears to be a 4-2-5 set. Coleman back to pass. Coleman pump fake, and then a sack. Rick O'Reilly with the big play to force the Houston punter on the field for the first time tonight. And for O'Reilly, that's sack number 7 on the season. O'Reilly, a monster on the inside. Big play there for the Louisville defense.
First and 10 of the 26, Marconi dropping the throw. And Marconi against the late blitz will go deep down the field, and that one is caught! Pass Grayson Abarazzo. Shigeki can't catch him. It's a Mauler touchdown. The 3rd touchdown for Abarazzo in the game. And it just looked like the Legend defense kind of got tangled up. And Grayson went for the pick, and he over pursued.
That was just an outstanding throw by Rocco. I mean, he's 6'5", I believe. Yeah, he's 6'5", 225. Long, rangy, strong, quick arm.
Rastelli back to pass. Rastelli going to the end zone. Pass is caught for a touchdown. Kendall Gilbert, and Baltimore's on the board. Give me some of that crab call. Baltimore cuts into their early deficit. Rastelli's got 6 touchdowns and no picks in the last 6 quarters of action. 2nd and 2 at the 40. Christensen will pass again. They are staying away from Kim. That ball, oh, it's belted up in the air, and Nick Nitro picked it off. That is tremendous defensive effort. Who dove in front of that pass? That was a Qantas Shine, who dove in front of the pass and knocked the ball up in the air. That was one of the best defensive plays I've seen in a long time out of a Qantas Shine. A.J. Levy, 6 seasons, all with Sioux Falls, the strong safety number 42. Chris Dodd, free safety in his 3rd season, wears number 49. Alex Parker and Nick Fargo, the linebackers, 91 and 92 respectively, as Rahman steps up in the pocket. Rahman gonna air it out deep, and Thomas Rahman's pass intercepted off the deflection by A.J. Levy. What a play by the veteran.
Well, you mentioned it, Cam. Levy and Dodd, probably the best safety combo here in the SFL. And Levy, a longtime veteran leader of this defense, comes away with his 6th interception.
So 4 receivers set here on 3rd down and goal. I guess this won't be a run. Christensen in the gun, looking towards the end zone, firing into the back of the end zone, and it is caught for a touchdown. The Pride extend their lead.
What a throw by Christensen again. Has all day to throw and a post route. And that one, I mean, it's not bad coverage by Chappelle. It's just a perfect throw and a great route by Ken.
3rd down and 2 from the 12. Go Knights rings throughout Metro Stadium. St. Clair to pass. St. Clair to the end zone. Intercepted. Oh, gotta be kidding me. And one first down will give the Crabs yet another one-possession victory over New York. 2nd and 4 at the 41-yard line. Hand off to Overstreet, right side. Overstreet makes one man miss, and then another. And here goes Overstreet off to the races. Down the sideline, 20. He will be not tackled, and he scores again. 17th touchdown for David Overstreet, and Louisville has scored 19 straight points. And Overstreet is checking on the pulse of Oklahoma City.
As we take a look at the four faces of Mount Rushmore, we've reached the final 4 games of the 20th season of the Simulation Football League, and tonight it all comes down to this. The first of our 3 games in this SFL Sunday Night Showcase takes us to South Dakota, a division title on the line for the Minnesota Legend, while the Sparrows hoping to play spoilers against their division rivals. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Liberty Park in South Dakota, alongside producer extraordinaire Cameron Irvine, our statisticians Mark Mello and Juan Mississippi, and my partner Jacob Clear. I'm Tim Hackett. You're watching the Simulation Football League presented by APM Music live on YouTube. Happy to have you with us. Final 4 games of the regular season, Jacob. All 4 games matter for all 8 teams involved in one way or another. This one, a Central Division showdown with a ton at stake.
Absolutely, Tim, and g'day Tim and SFL Nation. How is it going this evening? Welcome to Sioux Falls as we see the second time these two teams have played. Last week, Minnesota wrapped up their best season since coming into the league. Last season, they bettered their 7-win record from their last campaign. And we see tonight as they shoot for the division for the first time in franchise history in their young history as a team in the SFL.
Standing in their way is another member of their division. Sioux Falls officially eliminated from playoff contention last week despite winning. No chance for Sioux Falls to sneak in here in week 14, but a ton at stake for Minnesota. They could finish anywhere between 3rd and 7th in the league standings, depending on what happens today and tomorrow. And so for the last time this year in South Dakota, we're underway. Sioux Falls at home wearing their all blacks, and they will start off from the 24. So it was a tough weekend last week for Sioux Falls. They had a great Saturday. They did everything they needed to do by beating Portland at home to advance to 5-6. But by the time Monday night rolled around, it didn't even matter, because with a couple of other results in the league by the end of that night, Sioux Falls' chance at sneaking into the playoffs was completely eliminated. A great second half for the Sparrows, ended up dispatching Portland in a matchup of 2 4-6 teams, but no chance at the postseason for Sioux Falls here. They will toss it out to Jason Williams. This play worked incredibly well last week against Portland, Jacob, and it starts them off with a gain of 4.
Yeah, and you see the first play of the game going the way of Jason Williams, a screen of one of the power I formations, and you would have thought for a team that was just on the fringe of the playoffs for the last few seasons, the addition of Williams would have been a real boost as they come out in a gun formation.
7-5 and won a playoff game in each of the last 2 seasons, but the best they can do this year is go 500. Veteran quarterback Julian Tyree, his first pass to a receiver today, and it's a nice one. Wide open is J.J. McGee. Not one of the standouts on this offense, Jacob, but he comes through with a big gain and a first down for Sioux Falls.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was the tale of those 2 seasons where they did make the playoffs. It was very a heavy dose of the passing game from Julian Tyree, who this season stands alone as the #1 quarterback in history.
Now he'll try to toss it back, nearly intercepted, and breaking out of the hits is Williams, able to lean forward and get a gain of 1. Nearly disastrous for Sioux Falls on the 3rd play from scrimmage.
Yeah, Cody Griffin would want that one back. He was in the right spot, but just didn't quite make the play. And Tyree gets away with one there.
I was hoping we'd see it again, Jacob. You know a thing or two about good secondary play in this league, and Cody Griffin is an excellent corner and kind of whiffed on that throw out to a running back as Williams gets the carry, gets stood up for a loss. They lost that That single yard that they got on first down goes by the wayside on second down, courtesy of Buster Johnson. Every single time this season that Julian Tyree has targeted Jason Williams for a pass, he's caught it. Now more than 100 times this season, including more than 20 last week. Nearly the first incompletion was nearly an interception. So now third down for Sioux Falls. Play action, and Tyree will go deep over the middle, and it's knocked away. Good coverage. Michael Knight was the target. A couple of members of the Legend defense were there, and it's fourth down.
A tough catch to be asked of there, Michael Knight. A pretty disappointing start for the Sioux Falls offense as they give the ball right back to the Minnesota Legend.
Minnesota's third down defense has been excellent this year, allowing 52% hit rate. It's the seventh best in the league, and as a matter of fact, across the board, this Minnesota defense has been excellent this year. One of the best units end-to-end in the league. They sell out on the punt block and nearly get it. It's away from Sammy Prefontaine and returnable for Adam Banks, who does not have much on the return, and Minnesota will start out from the 19s. Jacob mentioned right at the top of the show, Minnesota already breaking their previous franchise record. This is just their second season in the league, already 8-3, a chance to go 9-3 with a win this evening, and a chance to wrap up a first-round bye in just their second season in the league. That's what's on the line for Minnesota. A win today gives them the Central Division outright for the first time and a first-round bye in the postseason, which starts next week. Johnny Reno's first throw of the day. Right on target, and in stride is Buchanan Simons, who accelerates and gets a first down for Minnesota.
Yeah, and you see, just quickly turning the corner there, Simons, that's an experienced play. And the addition of Chris Komisak coming over from Canton, I believe, as both the fullback and head coach, has really set this team forward to that extra win this season.
It's not an elite offense in terms of, putting up a ton of points and yards, but they are so efficient in just about everything. First carry for Colin Hart gets a gain of a couple. So here is the offense for Minnesota, led now by head coach Chris Komisak, who did indeed come over from Canton in the offseason. Johnny Reno is the quarterback. Colin Hart is the tailback. Chris Komisak, the fullback. Wide receivers, Buchanan Simons, Jay Taylor, Adam Banks, and Queg Mayhem. Tight ends, Jason France and Christian Bachikalupi. Gain of 3 on the first play for Colin Hart. 2 in the backfield here for Reno. Steps up and is taken down. Something that has barely happened all year this season, Jacob. A sack against Minnesota. They do not give up a lot. That's Darius Hawkins with the hits.
Yeah, you're right. You don't see that very often at all, especially given that they kept both the backs in the backfield in that formation as pass blockers, and neither of them really did anything in that situation. And unfortunately, the Sioux Falls defensive lineman gets it in and makes the play, pushes them back 3rd and long.
Sioux Falls is not a great sacking team either. Did not have any last week against Cyrus Jive in Portland. They won on their first defensive series today. So 3rd down for Reno. A lot of receivers there, and hits one, but a couple of yards short of the sticks. That's Jay Taylor, who's working on a career season. He gets 10 on his first grab of the day, but a few yards short, and Minnesota will have to punt.
Yeah, oddly, Jay Taylor didn't really break out in that first season with the Legend. It's been a much better campaign for him, as we see. 90 also into traditional 3rd down offense, and they'll punt this one away from their 30.
Ryan Platt's on the punt for Minnesota. A.J. Levy fair catches it. So you're right, Jacob. That's a pretty common look on 3rd down, but the pass was short of the sticks, and there was no chance for Taylor to be able to make the play.
Yeah, he made the right decision, just didn't give it enough time to develop. And it's one of those plays where it's good for 8 or 10, but pushing it at 12 is a bit difficult. I'll still let Sioux Falls draw up on this second drive.
It's been a strange season for Sioux Falls. Perfect at home, winless on the road. If they can continue that trend, they'll go 500 with another victory here this afternoon. Tyree in his second possession. Quick hit on the outside for Noe Terrazas. Mentioned that Jay Taylor working on a career year for Minnesota. Same deal for Noe Terrazas, former tight end. Now close to 900 receiving yards this season for the first time in his career.
Yeah, and again, that's just simple football from Sioux Falls. Just pushing the out routes to the edge. As we'll see, this will be a play to Williams in some respect.
3 yards away from 900, in fact. for Terrazas. Minnesota shows blitz. They will indeed run it. Jason Williams has all kinds of room. Right tackle gets a block, and down he goes, down the sideline to the 26, from the 36. Biggest play for either team. First down, Sioux Falls.
Williams makes the first break in this game, and he was the big signing for them over the off-season, signing from Fort Worth. He's top 10 in the league in all-time rushing yards, and that's an early example of the difference he can make out of a heavy running formation as Sioux Falls get the ball moving into Minnesota territory.
38 yards on the ground for the man they call Williams, who had a career day last week, 4 total touchdowns against Portland. Tyree will loft it out to him again. Williams, nothing doing there. Great hit by the aforementioned cornerback Cody Griffin. Here is the rest of the offense for Sioux Falls and head coach Jason McGee. Tyree is the quarterback. Williams is the tailback. Charlemagne Cornelius the fullback. Wide receivers, Noe Terrazas, K. Marion, Michael Knight, and A.J. Warren. Tight end, Ben Harrison, and the offensive line is anchored by left tackle Hadrian Marlowe, first-round pick this year. Minnesota jumps. Play fake from Tyree. A dot over the middle. Charlemagne Cornelius, the fullback, is wide open. Gets stuck at the end of the run by Axel Raven, but that'll be a first down for Sioux Falls. First penalty of the day. They will indeed be offside against Minnesota. That's Angela Meerkat Jacob, and an easy choice to decline it from Jason McGee.
Yeah, definitely, and very rarely do you see a fullback coming out in that formation as an eligible receiver. That's where they use Cornelius in this sense, and they'll push inside the red zone here. Expect Williams to finish off the job here for a good drive.
Cornelius is a fairly involved fullback, not quite like what Komisak does on the other side, but he did not have a touch last week. A big catch for him on Sioux Falls' second possession here this week. Play fake again from Tyree, again open over the middle, again the catch is made. This time it's Terrazas right on that magic yellow line, gain of 10, first down.
Yeah, they're really deceiving the Minnesota defense with this play-action style offense that they've brought out so far, and that's another example of just him dropping back, faking the handoff, hitting it across the middle. It should be a run up the middle.
Instead, they will throw. Williams is open out of the backfield, sidesteps, drags a couple of defenders forward, and scores. 2 receiving touchdowns last week. Give him one to start the day here today. And Sioux Falls trying to play spoiler off to a hot start.
Run it up the middle or throw it out in the flats. He'll make the play. That's what he's good at, is just making plays when there's nothing on. And in that situation, he was a couple of yards out from the goal line with a couple of defenders on him and just pushes forward, gets to the end zone, and puts Sioux Falls on the board first, who looked a little shaky on early. Tyree made a pretty questionable pass in the flats. That one also a bit questionable, but Williams makes the play, and Sioux Falls will be up 7-0 pending the kick.
6 plays, 70 yards for the game's first score. 38-yard run from Williams set it all up, and from there on it was Tyree hitting a couple of different targets, including Williams yet again. His 5th rushing touchdown of the season. I wonder, Jacob, if this would be a strategy in this game for Sioux Falls. They saw how well that flat pass worked with Williams against Portland last week. Now, Minnesota, not the same defense that Portland is, it must be said, but when these two teams matched up in week 3, Tyree hit Williams for a touchdown in that game as well. So given the success that they've had against Minnesota and all the success they had last week, I wondered if we might see Tyree go to Jason Williams out of the backfield in this game, and so far so good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that is so popular in this game because it forces defense to game plan for it specifically and leaves gaps in the coverage elsewhere when you try and target it, as we see Minnesota come out looking for a reply.
Minnesota won that game when these two teams matched up back in week 3. Won it going away. They never trailed, and they do trail here early on here. Colin Hart gets the give, spins a couple of times, and is able to pick up A gain of a couple. Here's the defense for Sioux Falls, and A.J. Levy, who runs that side of the ball. On the line, Darius Hawkins, James Kelly, Mike Wagner, and Johnny Van Man. Linebackers Nick Fargo, Derek Williams, and Jason Strongbone. They're known for their secondary here in Sioux Falls. Corners John Barnhart, Nathan Barnett, Terrell Davis. Safeties Jay Ringgold, Nana Leahy, and the Hall of Famer A.J. Levy. Reno takes his time, gives up the middle to Colin Hart again, and not much doing again for Colin Hart. Gain of a couple. Derek Williams on the hit. He's this team's leader in tackles with 103. Top 10 mark in the league. Give him another one. Not much doing for Colin Hart. 7 yards on 3 carries to start things off. Reno ready to throw on 3rd and 6. Feels some heat. Throws into traffic and picked off after a deflection. Multiple Sparrow defenders were there, and it ends up in the hands of A.J. Levy. Not the first time that's happened in his life, and the first takeaway of the game goes towards Sioux Falls.
Yeah, it's a tough one for Minnesota and a huge point in the game for Sioux Falls. There's their team captain on defense makes the play, and you saw the rushing diversity that this playbook has with Minnesota is going with Colin Hart twice on the early downs, and this is a great starting field position for Sioux Falls.
Uncharacteristic start for Minnesota. They will jump offside for the second time. Free play for Tyree, hits his target in stride. Second time they're going to get a first down on a throw in which Minnesota jumps offsides, Jacob. That's Kay Marion with her first catch of the afternoon. Career season for her. This one's going to count.
Yeah, and Minnesota have just got to clear up their discipline on defense, even though that it's kind of been masked by the fact that they made the completions. Their defensive line needs to get in sync with each other. You just can't be doing that against this Sioux Falls offense.
Marion close to 1,200 receiving yards for the first time in her career. Had never been over 1,000 before last season. Another play fake from Tyree, another throw. That's Cornelius again on the catch. Second time in as many possessions, and that works as well as the first one did.
Well, they're going to keep trying this until Minnesota kind of realizes what they're doing as a way of countering it, because it's a simple approach from Tyree, but he's avoiding really anything too risky. As we've seen come out in a single back formation, they'll potentially do something similar.
First catch went for 11. That one also went for 11 for Cornelius. Really about 10 and a half. They'll toss it out to Williams. Williams shakes out of a hit, then gets cleaned up on the second effort by B.J. Lovelace, middle linebacker for Minnesota. The tailbacks, the running back and the fullback for Sioux Falls, have now combined for 7 catches on their first couple of drives.
That's a really good route by Williams, and it provided a good option for Tyree as he sent all his receivers into the end zone and then just left that running back open in the middle of the field. As we see, we've seen a screen out of this formation earlier for a touchdown.
From the 5. Screen is open. They'll lob it out to Williams. Gets a block, sheds a hit, and then gets wrapped up by Griffin a yard short of pay dirt. You called that, Jacob. You saw it develop. What did you see out of that formation?
Yeah, a case of deja vu. They've done that once before. That resulted in a touchdown. History almost repeated itself on that occasion. As they come out, same formation, potentially the same play.
Figured we might see the same exact thing. Portland saw a heavy dose of this last week. Will Sioux Falls break it out again? Tyree will throw, looking for Williams, just over the fingertips of Griffin and into the end zone for the second time. 4 receiving touchdowns in 2 weeks for Jason Williams, and Sioux Falls off to a flying start.
Well, if it works, it works, and you're not going to veer away from it. And that time, Tyree just put some great touch on it as he floats it into the backfield and into the yard. And they just made it look pretty, in a sense, because they could have potentially just gotten it up running in the middle, but he decides to give Williams the catch in the backfield. And Sioux Falls up to a surprise 2-score lead here at home.
PAT good from Zashtel Black. This is Jason Williams' 10th season in the SFL. Before last Saturday, he had 14 receiving touchdowns lifetime. And in the last week or so, he's scored 4 receiving touchdowns. He is 3rd in the league in catches, not just among running backs, among all players. 6 catches, 2 touchdowns for Williams so far here this evening. And Sioux Falls off to a flying start. Nothing to play for here in week 14. Think again, they're up by 14. Banks with the return. Not much for Adam Banks once again. If you're new to the SFL, it's the Simulation Football League. It combines traditional sports, esports, and a role-playing game all into one. Team strategies are being executed in real time by our simulations as real-life players compete on the virtual gridiron. For more information about the SFL, visit our website at www.simulationfl.net. The SFL, it's football for everyone. Minnesota knows they're in the postseason. They'll have a home game to start off the postseason no matter what happens here today and tomorrow as Colin Hart spins away and gets a gain of 4. But they're hoping to not have to play next week, period, Jacob. If they win today, stakes are clear for Minnesota. You win today, you wrap up the division for the first time in franchise history, and you secure a first-round bye for the first time in franchise history. And once again, bears repeating, this is just season 2. For Minnesota. They have really burst onto the scene. One of the best teams in the league this season. I don't think that's in question. They're in serious trouble to start here today. Reno throws. Jumping catch is made. One arm snag by Adam Banks. What a grab.
Yeah, great catch. First season with the legend crossing over from the Revolution in the off-season. He's the 3rd receiver on their depth chart, but coming in to make the play in a 4-wide set. As we see Sioux Falls' favorite formation coming out from Minnesota.
Will they toss it? They will. Here's Colin Hart with a head of steam, and Sioux Falls able to limit Hart to a short gain. Well, we mentioned, Jacob, a lot of things that we don't usually see this season have already cropped up for Minnesota here in this first quarter. They do not give up a ton of sacks. They allowed just 12 over their first 11 games. That was 2nd best in the league. And Johnny Reno does not throw interceptions. He threw 15 over his first 11 games. That was the fewest in the league. So far in this first quarter, 1 sack and 1 pick, and they're down 2 scores. They will snap it before the quarter. Reno's throw behind his target, swatted and intercepted again. 2nd pick by Reno as the first quarter expires. Nathan Barnett gets the grab on the carom, and Sioux Falls' path to playing spoiler continues to be paved with Sparrow Gold.
Yeah, and again, Sioux Falls' defense just setting up each other for the turnovers. A 2nd tip pick for this defense, and it's another uncharacteristic error from Johnny Reno as we reach the end of the first quarter. Minnesota in deep trouble here, losing the division.
Reno has completed his first 7 passes, but 2 of them have gone to players wearing black. You're watching the Simulation Football League presented by APM Music live on YouTube. Happy to have you with us alongside Jacob Clear, with Mark Mello and Juan Mississippi and Cameron Irvine. I'm Tim Hackett. Thanks for joining us. 1 quarter in the books. Sioux Falls already up 14, looking for more. Another dot from Tyree. Hits his target in stride. Would you believe it? I'm not even surprised anymore that Charlemagne Cornelius with his 3rd catch on that same exact play.
Yeah, well, and it ties in with something that we were discussing, as we might touch on it a bit more after this play, is that Sioux Falls might try and run some different looks here with the implications of this game for them being at 0.
2nd and inches. They'll toss it out. Another catch by Williams and shoved back by Griffin, but he does get the first down. 11th catch between Williams and Cornelius in this game.
And you see that QBR there for Tyree in the 130s. This has been a really impressive start for the veteran. Just playing very simple football in Minnesota. Haven't yet really formed a reply.
They'll run it. Rare start for Williams. Has not had too many carries to this point in this game. Let's introduce you to the Minnesota defense. On the line is Angela Meerkat, Mark Mello, Buster Johnson, and Max Knights. BJ Lovelace is the middle linebacker alongside Axel Raven and Juan Mississippi. Cornerbacks Cody Griffin and Johnny Bravo, with safeties Rick Evans, Daniel Wright, Derek Meerkat, and Tiga Clay. Gain of 2 for Williams. Minnesota again shows blitz, and Tyree's gonna run it. Quarterback dive up the middle, and it works like a charm. A career season rushing the ball for one of the best running quarterbacks in league history, and a first down on the ground for Julian Tyree.
Yeah, this is one of the unique parts of their playbook. Pretty much no one else in the league does this the way that Sioux Falls pulls it out there with the QB sneak. And they set up, push further inside Minnesota territory.
2 carries away from a career high. He'll toss it out again. Williams spin move, breaks out of a tackle, accelerates, leaves B.J. Loveless in his wake, and scores! 3rd receiving touchdown of the first half for Jason Williams. And the Sparrows extend the lead.
That's a highlight reel play from Jason Williams in a career where he's had many. Just watch the natural move there. Spins twice on the defender, and that extra burst of speed to get him into the end zone. That's something that really only he can do. He's so incredibly quick. Good luck catching him from behind in that situation. Makes a massive play. That's a 25-yard play odd. And Sioux Falls up 3 scores. You would not have called this game to be so far apart within 12 minutes of scrimmage.
I certainly wouldn't have. Zashtel Black ready for the PAT. They'll take their time on it. And it's good. I was fortunate enough, Jacob, to see Sioux Falls in person last week, and they went up big early on Portland. They were up 16-3, so a flying start for them a week ago, but they were kind of gifted that lead. Portland gave up the ball through a couple of picks. Ezekiel Love fumbled, not something you see very often, and Sioux Falls was gifted great field position and scored on their early opportunities before they saw Portland rally to take a 17-16 lead. And Sioux Falls really accelerated in the second half and never looked back, ended up coasting to a double-digit win. But this feels totally different from that. Banks will start Minnesota off from the 24 for the 3rd time. Now, Sioux Falls has taken advantage of opportunities. They've picked Johnny Reno off twice, and they've scored off of those interceptions twice. So they've taken advantage of turnovers just like they did last week, but still, for me, Jacob, this feels a little bit different than it did a week ago.
Yeah, I might get you to elaborate on that because obviously the start has been pretty similar.
Yeah.
We see them come out in a gun formation.
And Reno try to right this ship. It's a way to do it. Hart makes the catch as he falls out of bounds for a loss of 1. The biggest difference for me so far, and again, like you said, it's early. We've only played 13 minutes of game time, but Sioux Falls was gifted plus field position. They started inside the 40-yard line multiple times, and there were a couple of times where they started inside the 25, and the offense came up empty. They had to settle for field goals. Zashtel Black was 3 of 3, but his longest was 34 last week. All those came in the first quarter plus, and they never really put a stranglehold on the game early, allowed Portland to come back, and in the second half, all Sioux Falls. Another diving catch is made. This time it's by Buchanan Simons. So Reno, typically one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the SFL, not so far to start here this afternoon.
Yeah, I wonder if he's just in his own head and needs to get a bit of a confidence boost this next play here on 3rd down. He just doesn't look very comfortable against this Sioux Falls defense at the moment.
Former running mates with Jason Williams in Fort Worth. Play action to Hart. Reno's throw, top of the screen, is caught by Jay Taylor, and that's a way to settle the score for Minnesota. There are former Charleston players all over these two rosters here, Jacob, guys that you know very well. Jay Taylor and Buchanan Simons, to name just 2, and meanwhile, their former team, your team, Charleston, in action right now. A big game for that team against Carolina. They're intrastate rivals, playing over in the City of Oaks, Raleigh, North Carolina. A make-or-break game for the Skyhawks. We'll be giving you updates from that here this afternoon for sure. Reno's going to lock and load. Deep bomb from Reno, and that's caught by Taylor. 2nd straight grab for a wide receiver who's working on a career year, and Taylor gets Minnesota across midfield.
That's the confidence boost we were kind of waiting for Johnny Reno to pull out, puts it in a good area, and his big receiver, Jay Taylor, makes the play. That's what he needed. Pushes it inside Sioux Falls territory. This is the best field position Minnesota have had all game.
Question about it. Cross midfield for the first time. They'll run it to the fullback. Komisak gets the carry and gets stood up at the line. One of the league's leaders in carries, 104. By comparison, Hart, the running back, had 150 before today. So Komisak, very heavily used, has always been heavily used, no matter where he's been in his pro career and even back in the minors. And now helping to run the show. Head coach and offensive coordinator for Minnesota. Big offseason pickup. Reno again, deep bomb into triple coverage, and that was ill-advised. Ripped away by Terrell Davis, who gets hit on the return by an offensive lineman. That is 3 interceptions for Johnny Reno, who'd thrown the fewest picks in the league before this week.
Just when we thought he was back in motion, Johnny Reno, he throws another pick, and this one, perhaps even more simple than the other two we saw earlier. This was a pretty easy play for the Sioux Falls defense to read, and here we go. They're back on offense. This is really dangerous times here for Minnesota.
Question about it. You get the sense that this is a crucial drive defensively for Minnesota. Tyree for Williams. Yet again. Juke move from Williams, and he gets a gain of about 7. 55 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns in the first quarter and a half for Jason Williams. Need we remind you, he's a running back.
Yeah, and they would have planned for this, but still haven't really been able to put a hand on him. And the more that Sioux Falls go to him, the more confident Tyree looks, and more comfortable maybe is more the word, because he just hasn't really had to produce anything big. It's just been Williams. We'll see another play to him in the backfield here.
Williams will get the carry, running left tackle, sheds a hit and gets the first down on the ground this time. And to your point, Jacob, Tyree is 17 of his first 18. 13 of those 17 have gone to either Williams or Cornelius, and almost all of them have been for big gains. His only incompletion was on that 1 third down that Sioux Falls had, where he tried to loft it into Michael Knight in triple coverage and it was swatted away. Other than that, he's been perfect today. And Tyree will dive again. Not much on it that time. Minnesota was ready. Right into the thick of the defense. Max Knight has had a killer season. Won't be a TFL for him, but he's top 12 in the league in both sacks and TFLs. 9.5 and 18 respectively, and he limits Tyree to a gain of 1.
And one of their big imports coming over from Arizona, Max Knight. We see this formation. We've seen Cornelius grab catches out of this formation every time.
Call. 3 catches for him already. He's open. They will go away from him, though, and Tyree threads the needle to K. Marion. She'll be about a yard short of a first down, but somehow Tyree was able to slip that one in.
A good throw from Tyree sets up a comfortable 3rd down. You would expect them to just go back to Williams. He's at a moment to grab his breath again. And we see how he set. This could be a run for Tyree.
It will be. Tyree, not quite. A new career high in carries in a season for Julian Tyree. He needed about a yard, but Max Knight again stops him up.
Yeah, that might not have been the play call. Granted, it worked the first time they did it, but they've ran 3 times out of that formation with Tyree. We'll see the second punt of the day for Prefontaine, and Minnesota get a stop that they so desperately needed.
It worked the first time, it did not work the next 2, as Prefontaine, left-footed kick, tries to angle it to the corner, and Sioux Falls not able to get it. That is Barnett's, one of the veteran corners on kick coverage, and not able to keep it out of the end zone. First time today, Jacob, that Sioux Falls is not able to capitalize on a giveaway.
Yeah, and the punter couldn't have done much else there. That was a pretty good kick. As we see, Utah needs to be so much better here on this drive. He had 1 good pass in the previous drives. We see a split back set.
Run it with Colin Hart, and lost kind of by me in all of the pre-storylines to this game is Colin Hart making the return here to Sioux Falls. This is the franchise he made his name with. Formerly, for my money, the best, if not one of the best running backs in the league when he was the feature back here for the Sparrows for about a half-dozen seasons, but he's been with Louisiana since, and now his 2nd season playing for Minnesota, playing back at home. Offside, flag flies. Reno will toss it out to Hart. Hart looking like Jason Williams on that catch. And it will be a first down if the penalty stands. And there seems some movement on the line for me. And offside is the call. We've seen Minnesota burned on that twice. Sioux Falls called for it for the first time. Mike Wagner guilty of the violation, and the play will stand.
Yeah, that's a good play. They needed something more like that. And you mentioned that this is his former team, Colin Hart, made a championship with this team, or at least played in that game. I believe in season 15 against, that escapes me, sweet Comisac up the middle.
I'm with you. That was the Sioux Falls glory days, and I remember those games well. Those were some of the first SFL games that I got to watch. And yeah, I mean, talk about making a run to the championship. That's literal when you talk about Colin Hart with what he did with Jalen Wells and Sioux Falls, the best running team in the league in terms of running yards in those days. And last year, not quite. They were one of the worst rushing teams in the league with Marcus Duncan, so kick him to the curb and bring in Jason Williams. And the offense has improved drastically, but the win total for Sioux Falls has not, as Hart gets a gain of a couple on that toss from Johnny Reno. The Sioux Falls, they were 7-5 the last two seasons, even with a dismal offense in season 19. They had one of the worst in the league, but they had an elite defense propping them up. This season, it's really a complete shift. Their offense is really good, but it's their defense that has struggled. Don't tell them that here today. They've been perfect. So much for that. Nice throw from Reno. First down, Minnesota. That's Comisac taking a page out of the Cornelius playbook and getting a first down.
Yeah, and he got a pretty good serve from one of the Sioux Falls defenders for his efforts. Just clobbered in the backfield by the corner. And Minnesota finally again got some momentum. You hope that they don't turn the ball over as they enter Sioux Falls territory again.
This is about where Reno threw his third pick. Two-back set. Reno will toss it out. Right in stride is Buchanan Simons. He accelerates and gets a first down. It's such an interesting-looking offense for Minnesota because Simons, who has been a number one wide receiver at different times of his career, he's really third or maybe even fourth on the passing depth chart for Reno in this offense. Jay Taylor and Jason France, we haven't heard from at all. He's been targeted on one of those picks by Reno. They're both having career seasons, the best seasons of their career. Simons is having the worst season of his career. He just went over 400 yards in this game. Reno will throw. Over the middle he goes, and the catch is made by Adam Banks, who is having a nice season. A gain of 9 for Banks on first down. Simons, his career low was 608 yards as a rookie with Chicago all the way back in season 11. He's never been under 600 yards in his career. Unless he goes off for 200 in the final two quarters, he will be for the first time. 2-minute warning. Sioux Falls up 21-0. This is the SFL presented by APM Music on YouTube. There's a look at A.J. Levy, a seasoned veteran and one of the best safeties in SFL history. He's got one of 3 Sioux Falls interceptions so far. 2nd and 1. Hart gets pushed down from behind. Great running tackle by Nick Fargo, 12th season veteran with the TFL.
Once again, Sioux Falls very awake to the Minnesota rushing attack. And you mentioned Buchanan Simons traditionally, particularly when he was playing with Charleston, he was more of a deep threat.
Hart gets the give, runs outside, and talk about a deep threat. Strongbow, check that, it's Fargo with the hit at the end of the run, and Hart is able to get the first down.
That's better play. And that time they bounce it to the outside. That's probably where Colin Hart is at his most comfortable. Every time they've run him up the middle, Sioux Falls have kind of had an answer for it every time. As we see a single back formation, this has been Sioux Falls' bread and butter.
Trips to the top for Reno. A minute left until halftime. He'll go to the bottom of the screen. That's Taylor on the catch. But to your point about Buchanan Simons, typically a deep threat, not in this offense.
No, they've used him completely differently, and they've definitely made more use of his size as an outside receiver than his previous teams. But notably known as one of the best deep threats the league has ever seen, particularly with in his days at Chicago.
No doubt. It's really what he made his name for. Averaging 11.5 yards per catch, which is good, but not quite what he normally is capable of. Down goes Reno. Second sack for Sioux Falls. They did not have any last week against Cyrus Jive, and one of the best sack-preventing teams in the league has already seeded 2. Jason Strongbow with the hit.
Yeah, and that's not what Minnesota needed in that situation. They were just getting close to the point where they could get a score up before the end of the half. Now they've got quite a ways to go, and they'll be looking to draw up something deep with 5 receivers on the field.
Strongbow is one of the league leaders in TFLs, but would you believe that is his first sack of the campaign? 3rd and 13 for Reno. Has time this time. Floats it right sideline, and it's caught by Simons, but out of bounds. Led him a little bit too far, and it's 4th down for Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. It looked like he may have had a foot in bounds as he brought it in, but obviously no challenge flag coming out here for Minnesota, and they'll settle for the 3.
Inside of 2 minutes, no one will review it. I'm with you. I thought it was at least worth a second look by our replays, if nothing else, but we won't get it. And so Mickey Melillo on to attempt a field goal for Minnesota. No problem. He's had a really great start to his SFL career. Missed just 2 field goals this season, and good to start today. Minnesota, Jacob, is finally on the board.
Yeah, well, it's been a really trying half for Minnesota, as Sioux Falls have kind of had their number the entire time, and we'll see here. It'll be interesting to see if Sioux Falls try and take a snipe before the end of the half. They've got plenty of time.
No doubt about it. And all 3 timeouts. Tyree, one of the most prolific passers in the league this season, which hasn't always been the case. And they will start off from the 23. That possession lasted almost exactly 4 minutes for Minnesota. 13 plays to go 59 yards. In their previous 3 drives, Minnesota totaled 13 plays. And of course, all of those ended in interceptions by Johnny Reno. So just by default, best drive of the day for the legend, but it only nets 3 points. They are not able to break back into this big hole. Heavy set for Sioux Falls. They will stretch it out to Williams, who gets obliterated. That's a nice sign for Minnesota going forward. Great hits by Angela Meerkats, dropping Williams for a loss of 3.
Yep, that's definitely more like it, and they've been needing to really get a hold of him. That's the first time Minnesota have kind of had a response. We see the 4 wide, we'll see play action here. Well, it depends on if they'll go deep out of this or not.
Sioux Falls doesn't have to snap it. They will, though. And they will go play action, and they'll hit K. Marion, who gets out of bounds. So Sioux Falls will get one more play at least before the end of the half.
Yeah, that's been kind of the go-to for Tyree when he's looked downfield. It's either gone to Marion on the outside or has hit Cornelius over the middle. It's a bit unconventional per se, but it's worked. And we see a spread formation here, potentially sends Marion downfield.
Catch for K. Marion in this game. Tyree will go the other way for Terrazas. Noe Terrazas down the right sideline, stays in bounds, and then finally gets stuck at the 40-ish. And Sioux Falls will call a timeout with 2 seconds left.
Well, they'll set out the Hail Mary. Tim will get a bit of fun before the half. As Tyree, we'll see. 57 odd yards required. It's not completely out of the question.
This would be his longest pass of the day. We've already talked about how almost all of his passes have been shorts. He's averaging 7.8 yards per attempt, but that's just because Williams has been able to do so much good work after the catch. Almost all of his passes have been within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage, but this one can't be. Last play of the half, barring a penalty. Pirouettes, Tyree bombs it up, swatted and caught on the carom by Terrazas. He's 17 yards short of the end zone, but Noe Terrazas made a great catch fluffs up the stats a little bit as he tries to get to 1,000 yards for the first time in his career. How many bodies did that hit before it finally was hauled in by 82 in black? 4?
And that's just showing off that Julian Tyree throwing on the run. Just said, I don't care, someone will catch it. And sure enough, really exciting half.
Terrazas is down there somewhere is the idea, and sure enough, 40 yards on the catch for Terrazas, his 4th of the half, and flying start for the Sparrows. They capitalize on 3 Johnny Reno interceptions, and they turn it into 3 Jason Williams touchdowns, and they lead 21-3 at the end of the first half. A surprising first half result, to say the very least, Jacob.
Definitely, we would not have called this leading into the game. It certainly prospected to be a pretty even game, given the fact that Sioux Falls have been thereabouts all season and just haven't had the results go their way. But this was really a one-sided affair in the opening half. Minnesota didn't really show much, even when they did get a good field position in their drives. They were unable to capitalise once at all, and then settle for a field goal on the second occasion. But really, it's been the show of the veteran running back for Sioux Falls, Jason Williams, has obviously had those 3 receiving touchdowns. He's kind of just done the work by himself for this Sioux Falls offense, along with the defense who created 3 turnovers that they capitalized on. It was a very good half for Sioux Falls' offense and defense. It's an all-around performance, and we'll see if that continues in the second half.
Realistically, Jacob, I don't like to use this expression because it's a little insulting to all the work that people put in behind the scenes, but realistically, for me, there's not much to play for Sioux Falls. They can't make the playoffs. If they win today, they'll be 500, which is a consolation prize at best. They're very likely to finish last in this division. Every team in the division is going to be 500 or better, except for Sioux Falls, which has to win today to hit that mark. But it doesn't feel as if they're playing like nothing matters. They're trying to knock out Minnesota and spoil their chances to win the division. If they don't win today and Tulsa does win today, then the Desperados are going to be division champs. There is a ton at stake for Minnesota, comparatively nothing at stake for Sioux Falls, and they've come out as the aggressor, and they had a great first half.
No, and if you finish at 500, you're leaving the locker room and your players with confidence heading into next season, more so than if you're at, say, 5-7. So that's probably playing into it today. So Minnesota, to receive the opening kickoff of the half, they absolutely need to come out of the halftime sheds with a response.
Not something they had much of in that first half. Their last drive was their best. Can Adam Banks get it started? Start Minnesota from just about the same spot on the field. Welcome back to Liberty Park. Tim Hackett and Jacob Clear with you in the booth. Mark Mello, Juan Mississippi in the stat truck. Cameron Irvine working hard behind the scenes. It's 21-3 in favor of Sioux Falls. Carolina and Charleston also in action right now on the SFL's YouTube network. A matchup that means a lot for both of those two teams, and especially for the Skyhawks. Division matchup there, division matchup here. Johnny Reno's first pass of the second half. Colin Hart with a couple of spins, and a gain of 6 for Colin Hart, who was more or less bottled up in that first half. Jacob, 21 rushing yards, 22 receiving yards. That's it.
Yeah, but he's looked better in the receiving game, I felt, for the most part. He's also looked okay at rushing to the outside. We'll see him try and run up the middle here. This is what Sioux Falls have been good at defending.
Minnesota does not roster any star offensive linemen, but they do have 2 tight ends, and they're both out there. They will dive it up the middle. That's Komisak, the fullback, on the dive. And stopped about a yard short by James Kelly.
Yeah, that's better. Maybe that's the formula when trying to go up the middle, is to use the fullback and then specify Hart for outside runs. This could be a screen. We've seen this from Sioux Falls quite a bit today.
Like I said again, Sioux Falls will stack it to combat it. They will run it. Colin Hart with the give, with the shimmy, and with the first down. So nothing flashy on this first possession, Jacob, but that's really been the MO for Minnesota this year. They aren't super flashy, as we said. They don't put up a ton of yards. They are top 10 in the league in points, but which is definitely good. But offensively, this is not a big, flashy run-and-gun team. That's just a slow and steady way to get a first down on their first possession of the second half, which for me is all they really need to do to start to right the ship. They'll run it again. Hart's, so much for that. Great tackle in the backfield. Sioux Falls says enough of that. Derek Williams with the hit. 13 TFLs on the season for him.
Yeah, Minnesota, as soon as they started to get some momentum, revert back to what they were doing early on in the game. Sioux Falls have come back out with a reply after conceding some pretty soft yardage to the Minnesota rushing offense as they come back out in the running formation.
Comisac hurdles his first man and gets about 5. Love this look from the fullback. This is their only offseason acquisition, Jacob. Everybody else on this roster was on the roster last season for the first season in Minnesota Legend history. They return everybody except their fullback, Tank Williams, and you bring in Chris Comisac, who is now a league veteran, his 6th season in the league, a guy with tons of coaching experience to help run the show, and it's worked extremely well. 3rd and 8. Reno swatted away. Great coverage. That's Barnett's, who's been all over this game. Special teams and defense, and another 3rd down failure for Minnesota.
That's a great stop, and I'll put Minnesota's offense off the field. They'll get the ball back into the hands of Julian Tyree and this Jason Williams-inspired offense. It's a good result for the Sioux Falls defense.
This season, Minnesota's been great on offense on 3rd down, and Sioux Falls has been poor on defense on 3rd down. But so far, advantage Sparrows in that category. Fair catch by A.J. Levy once again. The SFL playoffs are almost here. All the action starts with Wild Card Weekend, Saturday, April 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Next Level Sports. You can catch all the playoff games Saturday and Sunday with 6:30 and 9 p.m. kickoffs, culminating in the 20th SFL Championship game on Friday, May 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with Cameron Irvine, Chris Curtis, Paul Sarp, Mike St. Green, and Tyler Falk. Get ready. It's playoff time. Will be playoff time for Minnesota. It won't be for Sioux Falls, regardless of what happens today. They're trying to end their season on a high note, and this certainly would be a high note as Tyree links up with K. Marion for a gain of 8. Minnesota knows they will be playing in the playoffs starting in a week or two. They know they will be playing at home to begin the playoffs, but they don't know when their first playoff game will be. If they lose today, they could still get a first-round bye based on a couple of other things that are going to happen in the final 2 games tonight and tomorrow. But if they win, a first-round bye is cinched, as is the division title. Williams doing his best to change those fortunes. Strong run, stretching left tackle, first down. Sparrows, they're into enemy territory.
Yeah, they've opened up the field with this play before in this game, and that's another example of what he can do with a simple power run play to the outside. And again, just simple play from Sioux Falls resulting in big yardage as they come back out in a 4-wide formation.
14 on that run for Williams. They will toss it out once again. Williams slips out of a shoestring tackle and gets 8. Looked like Minnesota had a chance to stop that. That was Juan Mississippi, the linebacker, that missed the first hit, and somehow Williams is able to turn that into a big gain.
It's one of those plays that you wonder just how you would go about, what you can do in that situation where he's just such a natural tackle buster.
Tyree throws to Terrazas. Quick hitter and a first down for Terrazas. You see officially 76 yards for Noe on just 5 catches. He came into today about 110 yards away from 1,000, which would be the first time he would go over 1,000 in his career. Averages about 84 yards per game before last week where he was held to under 60. So figured he would really need to go off today to have a chance, and so far so good. He is well on pace for his first 1,000-yard season. First down. Deep play fake from Tyree. He will now loft it up to Williams, who has to make a tough catch out of the backfield. And Minnesota rallies to make that hit. Daniel Wright, the free safety, leading the way.
Probably one of the only times that Minnesota have been able to claim Jason Williams on the first tackle, but once again, another single back formation where Tyree sent the receivers downfield and Williams was the only option across the middle, and under pressure he throws to him.
Minnesota defense has not had the opportunity to really shine as Tyree dives back up the middle. That time it worked. Gain of 5. Tyree now extending his personal career high in rush attempts as a quarterback. We do not see that very much in this league, full stop. We do when Julian Tyree's under center. It's his 4th carry of this game. A lot of other teams don't have 4 rush attempts from their quarterback in a season. Again, play fake. Again, Tyree to Charlemagne Cornelius. It works for the 4th time, and Sioux Falls inside the red zone again.
Yeah, he has just loved that route across the middle, ran by the fullback, safe yardage every time, and it's again just been a very simple approach for Sioux Falls. Same formation, potentially the same play.
And we'll run the same type of play. Cornelius was open. Jacob, you were right on it, but for the second time, you were right on the play design, and for the second time, they had Cornelius, but instead, Tyree goes to K. Marion, and all's well that ends well. He gets a gain of 8.
Well, it's pretty simple to call these things because Sioux Falls are going to keep going to it the more the Minnesota show that they don't really have a response to it at the moment. They're trying to seemingly cover the outside more than anything, and they've just hit them either with an out route or across the middle.
From the 7, they will run it, and nothing doing that time. That's Williams on the carry. Great hits behind the line by Angela Meerkat, who just stopped Williams for the 2nd time today.
I think that's the first time we've really seen Williams used in that sort of a situation. As we see them come back out again in a single back formation. Tyree's going to make a play here, you would think.
This is just the 5th 3rd down opportunity of the game for Sioux Falls. Tyree will look for Williams, and Williams sheds a tackle, and then Minnesota rallies to finish it off. Wright again comes out from his safety spot to make the hits. Again, it was not a great result for Sioux Falls, but every time this season that Tyree has targeted Williams, he has caught the ball. Like that, it's a perfect hit rate, which is just, it's astonishing for me to even think about. And so far today, they're 13 of 13. Here comes Zashtel Black for the field goal. Made the All-Star game in his rookie season and has been rock solid in his Sioux Falls career. Missed just 1 field goal this season and perfect to start today. Sioux Falls gets those 3 points back.
Yeah, and that's a result for Minnesota's defense in a sense because they have not yet been able to stop Sioux Falls once they've gotten into the red zone, and that time they were able to capitalize on a pretty poor route by Jason Williams, and we see Minnesota's offense come back out again.
Down 3 scores once again in a crucial game for their franchise, for the eminence of this team, trying to establish themselves as one of the best teams in the league. They have one of the best records in the league, but can they lock up a first-round bye? For the first time today, let's go to the SFL studios. Here's Cameron Irvine with a game break.
Thank you, Tim. Ike McBride doing Ike McBride things. She has more yards than the whole Charleston team in the first half. As Carolina's doing their part to stay alive in the playoffs. 19-3 in the second quarter. Back to you guys.
Cam, thanks so much. A game that all of us here will be watching intently for various reasons. Carolina needs a win in that game to keep their playoff hopes alive, and even if they do win, they still might miss the playoffs given a couple of other results. Unfortunately for Sioux Falls, doesn't matter if they win here today. Even if they do, they will not be in the postseason in season 20, even though they were in the playoffs the last 2 seasons. Gain of 4 for Colin Hart. And Reno will now toss it out. Here's the first catch by Jason France, and he loses the ball, and it goes over the sideline. Sioux Falls was able to dive on it, but did they keep it in bounds?
Yeah, that was lucky. It does look like it went out of bounds. It was an interesting play call. They sent Chris Komisak just streaking up the middle out of that formation. As you see there, that ball not able to be rounded up by the Sioux Falls defense, and Minnesota gets away with one there.
Sure do. First catch for France. Tight end who's had a killer season. One of the most prolific tight ends in the league. They finally get him the ball. He gets 8 yards, but nearly coughed it up. Minnesota dodges a bullet. Reno's pass swatted away. That's Fargo on the coverage again. And looking at the stats here, Jacob, Julian Tyree is having a Johnny Reno type of game. Since he's been here with Minnesota, he has made his mark as a hyper-efficient quarterback. There have been games where Johnny Reno has thrown single-digit incompletions, and not just single digits. I mean, games where you can count his incompletions on one hand with 5 digits or fewer. And so far today, that's exactly what Tyree has done. He's 28 of 29. Reno has thrown 3 picks. He will loft it up, and a diving catch is made by France. France bailed him out, gain of 6.
Tommy hangs on to the ball, but again, that's why Julian Tyree is the league leader all time in passing yards and completions. He's just a true veteran and genuinely one of the best to ever do it in this league.
Question. Third down, they will run it, and nothing doing for the Legends. The Sioux Falls linebackers were all there. Derek Williams leads the way. No go for Colin Hart, and it's 4th down again.
Well, the game has certainly hit a bit of a hitch here, and the game just kind of hasn't really gone anywhere in this second half. We've seen 9 odd minutes of play and very little offensive output from either side. Both defenses have kind of come out the better of in the second half.
No doubt about it. The only points on the board here after halftime have been that one field goal by Zashtel Black. And oh no, Nathan Barnett is down on special teams. He has been active on punts all season and especially today. Let's see if we get another look at it. This could be big. He helps to lead the way after the punt was caught by Adam Banks, and he gets hit from behind, and he's down. One of the most veteran secondaries in the SFL. They've got 5 guys who have played half a dozen seasons or more. Barnett, the least tenured of those 5. This is his 6th season. And a big member of this special teams unit. He's down for now. Sioux Falls back on the ball, and nothing doing for Williams. He loses 2. Good hit in the backfield by Buster Johnson.
Second time Buster Johnson has blown up 3Ms in the backfield. That play has worked really well for Sioux Falls today. And Minnesota, again, have shown up defensively, but neither offense really wants to capitalize on the output of their defense.
Living up to the name, Buster Johnson busting up plays, and a loss of 2 for Williams. Has not happened for him much. Tyree will throw. Here's Marion. Good hits immediately after the catch by Rick Evans, second season corner. He's their nickelback in this Minnesota defense. Marion has had a brilliant season. She's 4th in the league in receiving yards, now over 1,200 this season for Sioux Falls. If you're thinking, well, does she have a chance to be 1st in the league? She's 4th. No, because Ryan Roosevelt has 500 more receiving yards than she does, and he hasn't even played this week. Tyree tries to run with it and toss it out to Williams, and he is hog-tied by 2 members of the Legend defense. Buster Johnson again, along with Mark Mello, and a big 3rd down stop for Minnesota.
Well, Minnesota are sending a message, and they're saying, we want to see something different from you, because really outside of the running game, we've only really seen them throw screens, out routes, and something across the middle to their fullback. It's been a pretty tight game plan from Sioux Falls, and we'll see Minnesota get the ball back with reasonable field position to start off with.
The SFL convention is coming to Cincinnati, Ohio, July 28th through the 30th for Season 21 kickoff weekend. For room reservation details and the weekend schedule, see the #Convention Alerts channel in the SFL Discord server. Rooms are going fast, and some have already sold out. Reserve your special group rate today. We'll see you there. We'll see Minnesota in the playoffs, and it's looking like starting next week as Reno's pass for Taylor nearly intercepted again. Was that Barnett on the coverage? I think it was Terrell Davis. The game itself got confused, which is never a good sign. No update yet on Nathan Barnett and Terrell Davis, who also has a pick today on the coverage that time. Reno dodges a bullet there. He hasn't even had a bad game completion percentage-wise. He's just a little bit below his season average, but he has thrown 3 picks and only 140 yards. This will help that total. A lot of running room for Colin Hart. Spin move and a sidestep for Colin Hart's vintage Hart. Hart stopping. Colin gives Minnesota a first down.
The best he's looked all day, Colin Hart. Pushes the spin move and a nice little juke back to the outside. Couldn't quite get away from that linebacker in that instance, but the first time we've really seen him in that much open space as Minnesota push up towards halfway. This is good signs.
Made A.J. Levy look silly. Not easy to do. They will run it, and that's retribution. You talk about Hart stopping. They just stopped Colin Hart for a couple of yards. James Kelly with the hits. And that's how this third quarter will end. Only 3 points on the board. Sioux Falls extends its lead. You're watching the SFL presented by APM Music on YouTube. Happy to have you with us. The first of the final 4 games of the 20th season of the SFL. Tim Hackett and Jacob Clear in the booth. Mark Mello, Juan Mississippi in the truck. Cameron Irvine back in the studio. Get you some updates from North Carolina as we go along. Empty set for Reno. Lofts it up. Bobbling it is France, and he can't haul it in. We did not see Jason France at all in that first half, Jacob, but they've gone to him a lot here after halftime, and he's bailed out Reno twice. That time, he dropped it.
Yeah, and around 730 odd receiving yards on the season for the tight end. He's been active this season, nearly giving the ball away though. That was a very risky drop.
Fumbled it earlier, nearly gave the ball away there too. Reno running for his life and gets waylaid. 3 Sparrows were there. Leading the pack is Johnny Van Man. He finally combines for his first sack of the season. And another third down stop for Sioux Falls. This is one of the worst third down defenses in the league. They allow their opponents to convert 58% of the time. And so far today, they've been excellent.
Forget first sack of the season. I think that's his first career sack. He was a former offensive lineman and converting over into the defensive side of the ball. And Minnesota, just when they look good, they again just have a running play get blown up. Then France bobbled a pass that probably could have been picked off, and then they take a sack. And they just, again, just give the ball back to Sioux Falls. They really haven't tested the Sparrows' defense today enough to suggest that they can come back in this fourth quarter.
This is just an uncharacteristic and, frankly, a stunning performance so far from Minnesota in a bad way. Tyree's pass caught by Williams, and Griffin's going to limit him to maybe no gain if they're being generous. This is my first time getting to see Minnesota in person, Jacob. Their second season in the league, 7-5 last season. They're 8-3 this season. They've really taken the league by storm. I know this league's already got a team called the Storm in it, but even still, that's the best description I have for Minnesota. We usually see fledgling teams struggle, and typically we see them struggle mightily. Not the case for this franchise, but here today, it has been a struggle. Williams trying to stretch it outside. Another great hit by this Minnesota defense. It's Derek Meerkat, who's had a career season, over 100 tackles with that TFL. I mean, we typically see young teams, and there were a bunch of other teams that came into the league last season with Minnesota that did struggle. We're talking sub 500 records. We're talking 3-win seasons. Not the case. Minnesota went 7-5 and made the playoffs, had some marquee wins. They've done it again this year as Tyree's pass is behind A.J. Warren. First time we're calling his name, and that's a quick 3-and-out by this Minnesota defense. To say that's exactly what they needed is not saying enough.
Well, here's the thing about this game, Tim, is whichever team can capitalize on their defensive output can potentially go on and win the game. And obviously Minnesota are coming back from 3 scores down, but if they can get on one touchdown, who's to say they can't get another two in the span of 9 minutes? Sioux Falls currently have no real signs of life offensively after a top first half. Minnesota absolutely need to score on this drive, Tim. This is crunch time now. You absolutely have to draw up something to hit them over the back, potentially look deep. Surely you've got a deep route in there and send Buchanan Simons downfield. Do something different. One of these offenses needs to win the game here, and Minnesota, if it's theirs, they need to score on this drive.
100% with you. Minnesota has shown this season that they have the ability to score, but they have not shown that tonight. Reno's throw out of the hands of Colin Hart. He was hit immediately. Great hit by Nanalehi. And there's the update on Barnett's. He will potentially return with a leg cramp, so questionable for the final 9+ minutes. Great sign for Sioux Falls, losing one of their top corners, nickel corner in this defense. So Nanalehi seeing a little bit more playing time because of that injury. Off-season pickup from Seattle. Does not have many tackles this year and has that pass breakup against Colin Hart's. Second down, split backs. Reno will toss it out to Hart again, trying to go outside, and that's Williams with the hit on Hart's, and Hart does get out of bounds to stop the clock, but only gets 2.
Yeah, and here's where Minnesota's playbook is going to be their worst enemy. They've drawn up plays where they want to play conservative all game, but unfortunately for them, it means that if they want to go aggressive with the clock winding down, there's very little in their playbook to try and do so. We'll see a 5-wide formation here.
3rd and 8 for Reno. Zips it, looking for Simons, and it's behind Buchanan Simons. Levy with the coverage. And another 3rd down failure for Minnesota. Looking down the depth chart, that is Kiki Anderson helping to provide the coverage for Sioux Falls. Thrust into a bigger role because of the injury to Barnett's. This is a very deep secondary, and it gets even deeper because that pass from Reno hit Anderson in the flank, and it's 4th down.
Yeah, and it's disappointing because you would have wanted them to try something different with that clock winding down, but again, to the point I made earlier, their playbook is not set up to chase from behind. They are established to keep games low scoring and play conservatively, and this is a situation that they're very much not used to.
How about, speaking of not used to, and just in this matchup this season, this is an unfamiliar sight. So how about what Sioux Falls has been able to do, completely flipping the script from week 1, where Minnesota led for the entire time en route to a 38-23 win. Minnesota scored the first points of that game on a safety in the first quarter and never looked back. Sioux Falls has flipped that script here in this game. The Sparrows have never trailed, and they've been in firm control really from the second quarter on. Tyree play fake, a dot. Michael Knight has his first catch and a gain of 11.
Well, the home team has never lost this matchup in its 2 meetings, but again, that time, Sioux Falls, that's been the context of their playbook pretty much exclusively. They've ran their routes and they'll hit Minnesota across the middle with a medium route where they need to, as we see a spread formation in the gun.
2 wides, 1 in the slot and 2 in the backfield. Pump fake for Tyree. Floats it up and nearly intercepted on 2 different occasions. Daniel Wright had the first touch. BJ Loveless had the second touch. And the chat, Jacob, is clamoring for a defensive touchdown to help get Minnesota back into this game with 8 minutes left. That's something the Legend have done better than almost any team. They have 5 defensive touchdowns, which is second in the league. Sioux Falls doesn't have any. They're one of about a half dozen teams that don't have any. And that was a great opportunity to at least flip the field, if not score, and they're not able to do it. Second down, Tyree for Terrazas. Diving catch, he did a barrel roll. Gets out of bounds for a gain of 4.
Yeah, that previous play for Minnesota has been the story of their game. You would not expect players of the caliber of Daniel Wright and BJ Loveless to be dropping picks. Granted, BJ Loveless is not really known for his interceptions per se, but Daniel Wright certainly is, and we'll see if the down situation here for Sioux Falls. Again, I'm telling you, the next real offensive drive is going to win the game.
Short drop. Terrazas able to adjust and gets the first down. Run out the whole way on that outside by Johnny Bravo, the veteran corner, another former Predator in this game, and Terrazas able to outmuscle him and get the first down for Sioux Falls.
Yeah, that's all they needed because, again, the clock is on Sioux Falls' side. They just need to get the ball downfield. We see this formation a bit today. It'll be a screen to Williams.
Right again. And running room for Williams. Spins away from Cody Griffin again and gets the first down. Another 11 yards through the air for Williams on that screen pass. That has been lethal.
Well, they haven't really drawn it up much in this second half. They've sort of used him more exclusively as a rusher rather than a receiver, and that's obviously been the identity for Williams this season. A different one perhaps to what he's played in previous seasons. Not to say it's been ineffective. He's been brilliant this season as they come out in another spread formation.
And over 250 yards of offense last week. Right back at it again as Tyree's throw is caught somehow. What a snag by Terrazas. Hit immediately upon reception. Hauls it in with one hand and gets Sioux Falls another first down. That was crazy.
Again, they hit them over the middle. Tyree, again, just looks so comfortable at the moment against this Minnesota defense. Again, this is the best they've looked all half.
Terrazas on the precipice of 1,000 yards as Tyree gets stuck, just barely able to fling the ball away. Great pressure from Mark Mello, 7-season veteran, made the All-Star game last season in his first year with Minnesota. Bit more of a down year for him this year, just 3.5 sacks, but able to apply some critical pressure there. Right back to the line they go. I formation. Haven't seen this a ton today, and Sioux Falls will pack the line. Trying to put this game to bed. Another pass for Williams. Spin move by Williams. Gets stuck by Griffin after a short gain. That was his 16th catch. He's also run the ball 9 times, so 25 touches for Williams today. Last week, again, a career game. 36 total touches, 259 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He was the only Sparrow to score a touchdown last week. Same deal today. The only player on either team to score as Tyree's pass, a laser looking for for Knights. Warren was there as well. And Levy that's Wright on the coverage. Getting my rosters mixed up in the fourth quarter, never a good sign. And it's 4th down.
Well, he got lucky. He was almost looking for Daniel Wright there in coverage, and that's a bit of a joke, but
I think the same.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Minnesota, this is going to make it a 4-score game with under 6 minutes left. It's very, very difficult to come back from here, especially given the way that Sioux Falls have played defensively today.
From about 50 yards, Zashtel Black is good. Officially from 49, he has missed just 1 field goal this season, and Sioux Falls might have just put this thing out of reach.
Yeah, you would think the veteran presence of this defense is probably going to be enough to see them through to the end of the game. I mean, obviously we've only really seen a small portion of Minnesota's playbook, but again, it's kind of been to their detriment the way that they played today, and perhaps all season, is that they're just not well versed in these situations where they do fall behind, and in situations where Johnny Reno has turned the ball over and Sioux Falls just got on top of the game early, and they just haven't got much in their playbook to try and counter a game where they're falling behind by multiple scores. And you'll see here, this is probably the best example. They won't go aggressive here with under 6 minutes left on the clock. You'll see more from Colin Hart.
Try to play a little bit close to the vest down by 24. Still a 3-possession game technically, but makes things extremely difficult. Hart will get the toss, and Hart will pick up a gain of 8. Again, Jacob, this is my first time getting to see Minnesota in person since they've been in the league, and they're going to be in the playoffs, which start next week. But almost certainly, no disrespect intended, they're going to play a better team in the first round of the playoffs than they are playing here today in Sioux Falls, which if they win today is going to finish 6-6. The worst team that is going to be in the playoffs next week will have a record of 7-5. So at least in terms of record, Minnesota's next opponent is going to be better than this one, as Hart has nowhere to go. You know, again, if Minnesota loses, they'll be 8-4, so they've won a whole lot more than they've lost since they've joined the league. But for me, and I'm curious your thoughts after this play, this is concerning for Minnesota and for the coaching staff. This has been a dud of a performance in all facets with 5 minutes to go, and got a better team on the horizon. Not sure how that bodes for their playoff success. Komisak will get the run on 3rd down, and Minnesota fails on 3rd down again. They are just 4 of 13 on 3rd downs tonight. Top 10 team in 3rd down conversion rate this season against one of the worst 3rd down defenses in the league. And Sioux Falls has won the battle. No surprise, Minnesota will bring the offense back out there quickly. 4:20 left in regulation, down by 24. Low snap. Reno needs this one. Over the middle he goes. 1st down, Minnesota. Great throw from Johnny Reno right on the spot. That's Queg Mayhem with his first catch of the game. 4 minutes left. Hurry up again. Reno's pass is caught by Jason France. 3rd among tight ends in receiving yards. Give him 11. And another 1st down for Minnesota. Here they go again. Same play, other way they go. It's Buchanan Simons. He's got the catch and another gain of 11. Minnesota continuing to roll.
Here we go. Here we go.
Same play. Williams for Sioux Falls is ambling over to the line, and Minnesota is letting him. He's not even ready. Reno looking for Simons again and nearly picked off by Terrell Davis, who had an interception earlier, and that will finally bring this frenetic drive to a halt for now.
Good old 90-old slants. It's the first time we've really seen them use that play all game today. And I will come back to your point earlier in the drive. We'll see what Minnesota draw up here. This is going to be the same play.
Hopefully they give you a chance, because I am curious for your insight as a veteran in this league. Looks like a similar play, just flipped. Reno pump fakes into traffic again, and it's broken up. Going for Simons. 3rd straight target for Simons. It's Davis again on the coverage and another 3rd down.
It's strange, isn't it? They refuse to push Simons downfield against one of these Sioux Falls corners and try and pose a matchup problem. And these 2 outside receivers, they've got like 6'4". They're massive bodies. You would think just push them downfield and try and press the issue, but again,
he's been lost. He's been lost in this offense this year, Buchanan Simons. Reno's pass is caught. Down the depth chart they go. Ray Matson, their number 5 wide receiver, gets the target on 3rd and 10 with the division title on the line. He makes the catch, but he stopped half a yard short, and it's 4th down once again. Where do they go here?
across the middle.
4th and inches. They get Sioux Falls to jump. Reno gets a lifeline as he lofts it up to Jay Taylor. Now you get to really pick. Are you going to give Jay Taylor the catch in about 6 yards, or are you just going to take the play? Assuming we know what the penalty is, it will be offside. This is about the 5th time we've seen this called against these two teams, and Minnesota will decline, so it will be a bonus catch for Taylor. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they would or not. I figured that they would decline it just because it's extra yardage, albeit only 1. But again, it's been a good drive, but it's been built off the fact that they had one play that worked 5 or 6 different times. We see another quads formation.
Minnesota is in the red zone, place they've barely been today. Reno swatted away by A.J. Levy. He nearly reeled that in. It was way over his head, and the SFL Hall of Famer nearly wrenched that back into his own clutches.
Once again, Reno nearly throwing the game away. We're inside 3 minutes left in the half, and we'll We'll see. I mean, look at that stat line for Johnny Reno. Is that really 2 completions? That can't be right.
It's not quite right, but still completion
Yeah, I
percentage.
wouldn't have thought so.
No, he's completed only 2/3 of his passes, so the completion percentage is correct. That'll go up a little bit as he hits Buchanan Simons. Minnesota's going to have 1st and goal for the first time today. 2:40 left in regulation. Reno for the end zone into heavy traffic, and somehow it is caught. Adam Banks with the touchdown. First today for Minnesota. They're not dead yet.
Well, they hit them with the all slants again, and that's what they've that was what they needed 6 whole minutes ago, but they finally get the score that they were after, and, well, now it's crunch time. We'll see them bring out the offside kick, you would think.
They're going to kick it. They're going to kick it. They're down 16. They're down 18, I'm sorry. They're going to kick it to go down 17.
Well, what difference would it make if they went for 2?
If they go for the 2 and they get it, it's a 16-point game.
But it's still 3 scores. So I suppose, I mean, if you get it, you would go
27-11 is 16. That's 2 that's 2 8-pointers.
Yeah, I mean, you make a point. Now that I think about it, you've got to run the math, but obviously someone's not doing their job on the sideline, and
I mean, that's just all of the talk in pro football the last couple of years. It's a clear recovery for A.J. Warren and Sioux Falls. There's been a lot of talk in organized football the last couple of years, Jacob, about, at least American football that is, about the metrics and the math of when you go for 2, and there are plenty of people who think you should go for 2 all the time. It's worth it. That, to me, I'm no coach, but that, to me, is as obvious of a situation as it gets. You go for 2 and you get it, you're within 16. You're still, I mean, a long ways away from coming back, but you give yourself a chance. Now you're down 17. You're still down 3 possessions, and there's no time left. As Tyree runs it, clock is going to run at 2:30. It's mind-boggling. You go for the onside kick, it doesn't work, and Sioux Falls is going to start in plus territory, and they don't have to do anything to ice this game.
yeah, well, look, unfortunately, the implications of that decision for touchdown will be pretty much equal to none. We'll see Sioux Falls all but run out the clock here after the 2-minute warning.
There are a lot of other teams that are salivating at this result. 2 minutes away from going final. Sioux Falls leads Minnesota 27-10. The SFL presented by APM Music on YouTube. Happy to have you with us. Tim Hackett and Jacob Clear, Juan Mississippi, Mark Mello, and Cameron Irvine. Thanks for joining us. Sioux Falls ready to pick off a big poach. Get some revenge for a loss earlier this year as Williams tries to navigate. Another catch for Jason Williams. Minnesota will use a timeout with 3rd down looming. Minnesota won the Week 3 matchup going away. They never trailed in that game. Minnesota en route to the best season in franchise history. It's a small history, albeit, but still the most successful season in team history. Sioux Falls, nothing to play for, you would think. So much for that. They're trying to knock off Minnesota and stop them from winning this division. They could still win it even with a loss, but makes matters a little bit more difficult. Here's a run, and Williams is out of the game. That is Freddie Fox, the number 2 tailback, with the carry, up 17 with 2 minutes left, and that's just about going to do it for Sioux Falls.
Yeah, backups are in, and I wanted to come back to the point you made much earlier in this 4th quarter with regards to Minnesota looking next week. And the reality is, Tim, is if you're Minnesota, you don't panic. If this is your identity, it's your identity. And ultimately, this is a team that they're going to be at their absolute best when they're in an arm wrestle. Today, they fell behind early because of some poor mistakes by their quarterback and the offense, as we see another screen this time to the tailback and the backup. But it's you just have to look at it next week and say we need to go back and look at the mistakes we made and rectify that. If you're not going to put up any deep routes and you're just going to keep the playbook very conservative throughout the whole game, that has evidently worked for them this season, but it just hasn't worked today because they've been chasing the game. but it is definitely something to factor in when you look forward into weeks. Is should Minnesota include something in the playbook that can be pulled out in these situations where they are trailing, where they won't rely on a 2-minute drill, no huddle offense with 90 all slants almost exclusively to get them down the field and into scoring range.
It's such an interesting part of the season. Like, again, this honestly, this has been a dud of a performance for Minnesota in a game that had a lot of impact on their postseason fate, and in the big picture of this young franchise. Willie Beeman's going to come on and take another knee here for the Sparrows. It'll be 4th down with a minute left. For Sioux Falls, there's a lot less riding on this game. For me, Jacob, and I'm no GM, but you don't see a lot of tanking in the SFL because higher draft picks don't necessarily directly correlate with amazing players versus, middle of the first round draft picks, which is what Sioux Falls is going to have. So I'm saying, they don't go into this game purposefully trying to lose to get a better draft pick. They went into this game trying to win and to make Minnesota's path to a division title that much harder. This win doesn't give Sioux Falls anything directly except a 500 record, which is better, like you said earlier, than a losing record for sure, but it doesn't do anything for them directly as Black hits another field goal. He's been perfect over the last couple of weeks. 20-point lead for Sioux Falls with 23 seconds left, but this has been an impressive performance by a team with, for all intents and purposes, nothing to play for.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's again the point of playing for pride is you give your locker room and your players confidence leading into the future season. As we see, Minnesota are going to get the ball back. I'm reading the chat on the left-hand side of my screen, Tim, and there have been some questions about the AI of this game, and obviously that's raised quite a lot in situations that are quite adverse in terms of what you would normally expect. But today isn't a question of AI. It's just the way that Minnesota game planned, and unfortunately we're seeing the adverse effects of the way that they play. If the story of the game was that first quarter where they just fell behind off the back of some turnovers and some brilliance by Jason Williams, and they have not shown anything to really recover, as you can see.
Another interception for Reno. That is his 4th of the game. A.J. Levy has his 2nd. And right on cue, Jacob, Minnesota continues to shoot itself in the foot. The quarterback with the least amount of interceptions in the league before this week has now thrown his 4th.
That's how they've lost the game, Tim. Not AI, not anything other than the fact that they have just not been good enough offensively and have not protected the football. And again, another pick from a route that we've seen a lot in this second half from Minnesota. It's really been the most go-forward play. It's just not been good enough from Minnesota, and they definitely need to look at their game plan heading into next week, because any team, whoever they face, depending on how the rest of today goes, I think there's multiple different ways that the seeding could go for Minnesota. But it's one of those things. Whoever plays them can definitely take some leaps out of this Sioux Falls book. And leading into next week, Minnesota. Again, no need to panic, but it's just not a good sign the way that they played today, and completely unable to really come from behind. It's a problem you see sometimes with these conservative offenses.
Central Division is still up for grabs. Minnesota could still win the division and could still get a first-round bye based on things that happened in our final 2 games of the regular season, but they have a lot of scoreboard watching to do, a lot of cheering to do for other teams. They had their destiny in their own hands, as they say, Jacob, and they let it slip through their fingers. 4 interceptions for Johnny Reno. Again, he threw the fewest interceptions in the league before this week, just 15. Sioux Falls is one of the worst takeaway teams in the league, but they were +3 in turnover margin last week, +4 in turnover margin this week, and they've got 2 double-digit wins to close the season, and they finished this campaign at 6-6.
Yeah, and to touch on Sioux Falls quickly and look at them next season. The defense will likely stay intact, and they'll get Jason Williams back again with more of an understanding of how he works. But for Minnesota to go back to one last point before the end of the game, they with some questions over whether or not they should be questioned next week in the first round. This team will likely be just as good as they've been all season. It's just a game where, unfortunately, if they fall behind, it just isn't in their hands. The game is in their advantage anytime they get into an arm wrestle with an opponent and kind of go down to the wire.
No wires to go down to today. It's all Sioux Falls. They win it 30-10 to spoil Minnesota's early chances of winning the division. But division title and a first round bye still in the cards for the Legend. All eyes on Tulsa versus Indianapolis later on tonight. Minnesota will be in the playoffs for the second straight season. Where will they be playing and when will they be playing? That's all still to be determined later on tonight. Charleston against Carolina in action right now on the SFL YouTube channel. Check that out with Tyler Falk and Brett Solberg. That's where we're headed next. Until then, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Sioux Falls ends the season with another win. For Jacob Clear, Mark Mello, Juan Mississippi, and Cameron Irvine, I've been Tim Hackett. We'll see you in the postseason starting next week. Sioux Falls wins it tonight. 2 more games still to come. We'll see you then. Until then, so long from South Dakota.